where the fun begins.
Hello, welcome to the Council. We begin tonight's meeting of the Council by calling the Council to order. Hello to everyone, and thank you for joining us. The Council is a live Twitch talk show and podcast discussing Star Wars: The Old Republic. I'm Elise, and with me are my fellow Council members. Magic Ace.
Yo.
Redna.
Heidi ho.
And Sechari.
Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome.
Tonight we're going to be talking about gear and currency. I think we talked about this actually a little bit, year one, but since then I think we've had at least a couple more currencies added.
Yeah, no kidding. I think it's been a long time.
So I'm sure we can have some new things maybe to touch on, and maybe some more perspectives now while we've had a little bit more time, and those additional currencies are kind of their own little bag, let's say.
At what point is it, I used to think BioWare was unlearning what it had learned, and now I'm starting to think that BioWare just doesn't learn.
It's learning again.
They just keep fumbling along, changing things, but there doesn't seem to be any purpose.
Man, I kind of would like the crystals to come back, because I was cool with that. I had like a good year and a half to get used to that. So then when they changed it to all the other stuff, like, I don't think I've spent any of my the little compounds you get in PvP at all yet.
Don't you miss that, like, one Korriban comm you had, or like one Tython comm, and then you had
and it was useless, like, even if you could spend it.
3 Nar Shaddaa comms and maybe like 5 left for Oricon. I mean, come on, weren't those ones the greatest?
I still have a crap ton of Zyos
hashtag
things in my bank that I don't even know what to do with them. I don't even know if I can use them.
I just keep buying the mounts, the like Zyos Ice Trompers or whatever. I'm like, I'll just start passing these around to my people, because what else am I gonna do with them?
Oh, I didn't realize there were mounts. I guess I'll have to go do that. Use that.
And the orbital station, there's like 4 different vendors, and like 3 of them are useless. One of them sells a mount.
Yeah, I wasn't fond of the armor sets, but anyway, Magic Ace.
Yeah. So after our live broadcast, you can find our recorded episodes everywhere podcasts are found. Also, you can find us on our YouTube channel. You can check out our social medias like Twitch or facebook.com/CouncilSWTOR. We also have Twitter, and we are at the Council SWTOR. And we have a beautiful website that Sechari slaved over, which is www.thecouncilswtor.com. But wait, there's more. You can also find us on patreon.com/CouncilSWTOR, and generally any kind of browser and or way to search. You just stick us in there and press enter, and voila, we are there. And Magic Baby is there too.
Yes, hashtag Magic Baby. All right, so let's get into the episode. The icebreaker question is the question that we ask every week just to kind of get the discussion started. So the discussion question of the night is, given that our discussion is about gearing and currencies, out of all of the eras that have been in SWTOR so far, what has been your favorite gearing era and why? So, for instance, currently, for instance, we're working on 252, 258, and there's the current comms that you need to earn in the system that they have in order to earn that. There's been some iterations. I think you guys all understand what I'm getting at, right? Okay, so Redna. Because I know you have a lot to start on with this.
I think it's 2.0. I'm not sure, but basically, whenever it was that you still had Warzone comms, but the gear you used in PvP was different from the gear that you used in PvE, and you had to play PvP or PvE to get their respective gears.
Right.
That would be when I was most happy for it. And the gear wasn't a currency purchase for the PvE stuff. It was just, go and defeat things and get loots. That was my favorite era.
It's very
fell.
MMO. Just like strangely MMO. Yeah, no kidding. Oh, let's see. I'm trying to think. By the way, chat, feel free to tune in on this as well. We'd like to hear what is your favorite era of SWTOR gearing / currencies and why. I'm especially interested in the why, because that's the part that I think is the most important there. Who did we have next on our list here? Magic. What was yours?
I have to go for the unmute because otherwise you'd be hearing my beautiful daughter talking the whole time because she pretty much doesn't stop now. Redna's answer is pretty spot on, but I will say that I've gotten used to what's going on now, and it's like no matter what I do, I'm gonna get gear. This time I have more gear for all my ults than I ever have, and while yes, I still swap with legacy gear. I get higher drop rate for like left side, and it's just easier to get. Also, on top of that, like I have a Madness Sork spec and a Lightning Sork spec set because you don't want them to be the same. You want the stats to be a little different. Right. Like I'm not going to need the same alacrity, like example, in Lightning as I do Madness because you have slightly higher Lightning alacrity. Yeah. Anyways, so like I have different gear for both of them, and I didn't have to work hard to get them. Not gonna lie though, I do a lot of NIM, so I roll on a lot of set piece bonuses that I don't need on my main character, and so I get a ton of that way. But then I also get the gear from the drops. Mm-hmm. I get also like just them getting their comms. So like I don't know, like I've always got gear. I'm never lacking for gear, and that's never been the case for me. I've always struggled really hard to get gear. So for like the first time in my game life, I've just got gear out the wazoo. I have banks full of gear, and I just don't really know what to do with it. Sometimes I just cash it in, and I just let it sit there. When the timer's off, I sell it, so I get credit. Yeah.
So you might actually like it right now, is what you're saying.
Right. I'm surprised. Like my original answer, I can't say because it involves an exploit. So my secondary answer was kind of what Rena said, but then when I thought about it, yeah. Well, no, it wasn't, but it was pretty good. So then my third answer, I guess, is what I just said, because I'm like, well, actually, when I think about it, it's never been easier for me to gear. So I guess now technically is my answer, but originally that was not my answer. So
I'm kind of curious now as to what the exploit was, but maybe we shouldn't go there. I don't know. Maybe it'll come back.
Ravagers, the island. Just zone in and pick up the final loot.
Yeah.
No, I'll say it. It was back when 186 gear was like the best you can get, pretty much.
Oh, and everybody was doing that was when they rolled out Neff, and then went on holiday, and everybody was farming the fire out of that stuff before they came back and fixed it.
That was before I understood what an exploit was, and that was when our guild leader, after everyone was geared and I got my last piece, was like, guys, we're not going to do this anymore. We can get our accounts banned. This is an exploit. I'm like, we can get our accounts banned?
That's kind of bad for the guild.
Yeah. Right. Oh my gosh. Like it was intense pain. So that's why I was like, that was my original answer, but I feel like that's not appropriate. So my secondary answer also was closer redness. So my third answer is my final answer.
Well, what was the Neff exploit?
So before they put in the ability, like Furious Scream or whatever it is, I forgot what it is now. There was a texture glitch. There was a pillar you could stand behind, and as long as two people was in the instance, one person could hold the aggro and the other person could keep them cleansed or healed. And Nephra would just sit there.
You could just two-man it,
trying to kill you and not kill you, and so you could two-person the boss and just keep doing it, swapping out your characters and send it in legacy gear, and so you get everything you need for one character, and you only needed two people to do it. So, and you could set it to 16-man or, Nightmare, all that stuff. It was the same thing. Like, it was pretty bad.
So people were picking up the tier 3 gear.
Oh, and that's right. That was when you could, when hard mode and Nightmare were on the same timers, right? So you could clear up through the hard mode and then switch it over to Nightmare.
Well, we didn't even do that. You just did Nephra. You just farmed Nephra. And then you would exit and reset it.
Oh, was Nephra the first one?
Yeah.
Nephra's the very
That's
first
the one,
boss.
remember, where you have to, both tanks have to stand in the same spot? Now.
Yeah, well, now you could have just done when you stand behind this pillar that had the texture glitch. Yeah. She could see you, but not hit you. So she was looking at you, but you took no damage other than the tick damage from her dot that she put on you. And you got, what was it? It was, I don't remember. But now they put in like Furious Scream or whatever the ability is. So after like so many seconds go by, if nobody takes any damage, she screams and the whole raid wipes. So yeah, they when they couldn't fix
That
the
was a
glitch
creative
after, like, the
solution, yeah.
sixth, yeah, it was like the third or sixth. I can't remember now. Like how many ever attempted fixing it that failed. They finally just added an ability that took care of it, so they didn't have to fix the texture. It works. I promise. We tried.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I'm next in the list, right? That's what I think. Oh no, Elise is next in the list. Elise, what was your favorite era? And chat answer too, feel free. In SWTOR gearing / I guess commendations or whatever currencies to get you there. Can you remember?
Mine was right before coffee, so I guess it's 3.0.
Okay.
Gear, basically, especially if you didn't. So I was raiding very infrequently. This was the time where my buddy who got me into the game was dragging me through Pug
All right.
raid groups.
Fair enough.
I know, and I think I was doing WoG too. I think that it kind of split that time. But really, like, I didn't have to work very hard to get. Obviously, I wasn't doing anything super hard, so that was the time where you could go and buy PvP gear, and it was set bonus gear, so you could go do PvP, save up all your stuff, buy set bonus gear, put it in legacy gear, and then that was pretty good for your first like entry raid gear. So because it was set bonus, you could buy.
It was. I have a footnote on that, but we'll get there in a moment.
So, well, I mean, if you're doing story mode raids, it was perfectly fine.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And so, so I could do that. Plus, you had the crystals. Then there was a couple other things. We had crystals coming out of the wazoo that you could like buy multiple level stuff and like move, set bonus stuff around. It was just. Yes. I had no problems getting what I wanted.
Right.
At all. And then I think the printing your gear too came around about the same time. It was around this time as well when they first did the outfit.
Oh, the outfit designer, right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that was about the same time too.
Yeah,
so then that eliminated actually having to worry about the light
that
gear.
Saved me so many millions of credits. Oh,
so for me, it was like there was gear everywhere, and there was lots of different paths you could take to get to where you wanted to go. You didn't have to do this one or that one or this one, and it was the only thing you couldn't do is you had to have PvP gear to play PvP.
Right. Because
the expertise stat was still on it. But for me, I was towards the end of that. I was doing PvP to level up my newer characters because I didn't want to have to repeat the class story again, when I would make
you're doing flashpoints, power leveling some other way,
yeah. So I would just like do it on my lower tier because I loved the lobies was my favorite like PvP rank. It was so much fun.
The way more chilled brackets where not everyone has their skills.
Exactly.
So they do
go in there, and if you suck, it's because I don't have all my skills, right? So, and I would just port them all, and then I would move them around to. I would buy it for my higher ranked tunes and just move stuff up like that. So
yeah. No, okay. I think I agree with you. My answer to this would be definitely 3.0. I think 3.0 was the zenith in this game. It was the apex, for multiple different reasons. I think gearing was definitely one of them. I agree with you about I know there was a time in there where people were, and I think at least you alluded to this, that they were... People were able to get the first tier or maybe the second tier of PvP gear, but because it was higher rated than the story mode PvE gear, they were getting the PvP gear and then going into story modes and were using it. And BioWare quickly fixed that, made it so that that it wasn't quite viable to do that anymore. And that happened, I think, around 3.0 as well. Somewhere in there, they did that. So that was when that got fixed. But I think definitely 3.0. Like, it was the clearest cut. You would get your drops, you take it to the person that and switch the token for the piece. Min-maxing, I think, was the easiest. And like you'd get your PvP comms that were simple. You'd go to the vendor, buy your first tier, and then you had to get the more of those PvP comms, and you turn it in with with your first tier gear piece for the second tier. It was as simple
You
as
also
it
got
could
the
be.
crystals
And
too, if you remember. You
strip out
had
the
the
shell and
three,
turn in the shell. Yeah.
Yeah,
you
and
had
keep
the
the comms.
three. Well, see, I didn't know about that one, so I never did it that
Or
way.
the mods. Yeah.
I you had your, the green, blue, and purple crystals or whatever, and you could get the blue and the green ones at least by doing, or the whatever they were, like the first two, by just doing dailies and weeklies. So, I mean, like, if you weren't raiding, you could still build yourself, maybe not a set gear, but some at least higher level stuff if you wanted to go do story mode. And some of those like enhancements and the mods and the some of those actually were good. People were pulling those out to min max or whatever. So I mean, at least some of those were still valuable too for raiders. So it kind of, I thought, worked for everybody. But I mean, yes, there were multiple currencies. So I know that was the big issue of why they were trying to streamline it,
I
supposedly.
look back now and I realize just how difficult it was to learn how to gear with that system. Like, if you've never played an MMO before, so you've never done any gearing, and you're thrown into that, and you have to figure out how to gear a character, not just gear a character, min-max a character, and then augment the character. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I remember
I know,
so
it's
many
crazy.
times
Like, you play a new
destroying the
game and
armor
you
and
have to
stuff.
learn how to do it.
Learn to
Well,
play
No,
new.
I'm saying, like, I had never played an MMO before. I had only played console games. So I didn't know anything about gear other than, oh, this piece is a higher level. I should go ahead and put this on because this lightsaber is better than this lightsaber. And that was it. Either you put a gear on or you didn't as you leveled.
Well,
it was
MMOs
your powers that did all the
MMOs
best of
have
it.
always had more of a learning curve to them, which is kind of cool because it sets you up for the long haul, which is awesome. You kind of have to break your way into the culture of it.
Well, the flip
I just
side
felt bad for the
is
guy that was teaching me. I destroyed so many set pieces trying to figure it out. He was like, "Did you put the other one back in?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have it right here." And he's like, "No, the other one, the higher one." I'm like,
no.
He's like, "Did you do that again?" I'm like, "I'm sorry." It was bad. He took me through so many things to get set pieces. It was a rough learning curve.
So the flip side of that learning thing is that you could be like me and say, screw it.
Yeah.
This is taking my time away from playing the game. I don't have the patience for doing all this min-maxing crap. This is higher than what I wanted.
But there's zero value for min-maxing outside of nightmare operations. So
the problem was I would get on the forums and people would start, quoting some Dolphy guide or you have to do this and that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but it took me an hour to follow.
Wait, hold on. Keyboard Ninja says, because he was doing all of this, remember when the theory crafting was at its zenith as well? The guys were out there crunching the numbers, testing stuff.
I mean, that's when I came in, and I'm just like, dudes, I'm
glad there's
an hour
to
do one time. Like when I started again, like I was saying, it was that 10 times experience or whatever time, 12, whatever. So I was switching out gear like every 7 levels or something, and I would sit there for an hour. It'd take me an hour to do it.
Well,
and
every 6 or 7 levels,
so that I can do this. This is not how I want to spend my time. I was like,
I would agree.
I'm buying the healer gear because my first character was a healer. Big mistake.
I remember leveling during that time period. I think actually there were
gear. Good to
8
go. Even
characters that I max leveled during that time period. Naked, didn't put on a single piece of gear. Just saying, I mean, companions could carry you, so.
Yeah, but I didn't know that.
Well, if you had the presence right, you know what I'm saying?
I know, it sounds like you're getting really terrible advice from these forums. Like, these douchebags were making you waste time min-maxing while you're leveling? Like, give me a break.
That's what they do. They still do it now. Go get on the
min-max while you're leveling.
These are the same guys that say, spacebar, I'm going to boot you from the group.
We're not here for the journey. We're here to all reach endgame and then be bored.
Yeah.
Don't enjoy it. Don't enjoy the experience. You must get unhappy.
Oh my God, it was hard.
Now, I will automatically say, like, when I jump in, I'm going to be like, yo, hey, just so you guys know, I haven't watched this in a long time, and I'm only going to spacebar when I feel like it. And they're always like,
All right then.
Okay. And sometimes people leave the group. They will. They just leave the group. And I'm like, that's fine. You leave the group if that's what you want. I haven't done this story in a long time, so I'm going to watch this. Like Lost Island, I never spacebar anymore. I watch it every time. Because it's so rare that I get a group that wants to go on Lost Island. So I'm like, I'm not spacebarring a thing. And you guys can leave if you want. I'll pug someone new. So I'm not afraid of that anymore.
Or I'll pull out my companion and carry on without you.
3.0 is also about the time when, I want to say it was 3.0, when, at least in the healing world, they figured out that power was a better stat than crit. Remember all that? They got rid of Surge, I want to say, at that point, and so everything was crit. But everybody had been previously maxing crit because, well, there was some diminishing returns, and there were some levels, but crit was where you poured your energy.
I was always highlighting.
And then they realized, hold on a moment, crit is unreliable. Which, but power is reliable. That's going to give you your bonus, whatever. So stack the power. And that was when I was like, it was simpler than all of these levels that you have to reach when all the alacrity came in and I think complicated some things as well. But
I always did higher alacrity and then power. Crit
well, alacrity
was
wasn't
like
as useful then because alacrity would you'd burn your resource out. Because you'd have, the higher output because your GCDs
and
are
it didn't
cooler.
benefit everything. It didn't benefit your hots or your dots, and
But you're also
if you were on an agent though that had where you had heal over time effects, then the alacrity becomes more important.
Yeah,
right?
but your resource would generate.
I was on a mercenary during that time, so I always did a little higher alacrity, and people would ask me why, and I'm like, I don't know. It feels.
Oh
better.
yeah, on my trooper, I always ran major
and
alacrity.
They're like, "That's your excuse." I'm like, "Excuse? No, that's my reason. That's my reason. I do better." And at the time, I mained a Merc Healer in all my hard mode groups and in ranked PvP. The first time I tried ranked PvP. I did a little higher alacrity, which I'm not going to lie, it was like half of a season, and it was so long ago. I honestly can't remember even what season that was, and I never got anything with rewards, so I clearly didn't rank or anything, so I didn't know anything back then. But I always run high alacrity.
Yeah.
Even now, I run slightly higher alacrity than the cap. Then they say, like, don't go over this amount. I still run a little bit higher because I built a cap where they said, like, don't let your alacrity go over this because there's an alacrity cap. I built an armor for that. And then I built what I wanted. And I ran the two side by side. And it's hard because I kind of ruined the placebo effect because I know which one's which. So maybe I just think the higher alacrity runs better. But when I get on a tune that I don't feel
it's not a true double blind study kind of a thing where you don't know, you're trying them both out.
But to me, like, I feel the difference when I'm healing. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just so slow. Like, why is it so slow? Even though it's probably the same.
Honestly, though, like, so this is a complete sidebar, but people, that you're supposed to put as much output as you can. No, you're thinking like a DPS. DPS, you're supposed to get as close to the ceiling as you can, right? What's the max DPS I can do? That's my goal. As a healer, as long as nobody's dying, you're doing good. You know what I'm saying?
That's fine at hard mode. But on Nightmare, if you're not throwing out dots while you're healing people, they're like, yeah, but did you see their DPS numbers? Ugh. There's a joke about like 3K heals or 3K damage or whatever. Like if you're not putting out 3K damage while you're healing, then you should
be out damaging tanks, I think, as a healer. But yeah,
it depends on if you're a jug, man, because sometimes a jug can out heal you with that reflect. That is insane. It's nasty. It's not fair. Put all your hard work and effort in that heals, and you watch the heal meter shoot up on Star Price, and you're like, what am I even here for? Sorry.
Really
okay.
funny.
Anyways,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So the topic, as obviously we're talking about gearing tonight, we're talking about how you get there in the various eras of SWTOR and the journey that we've had so far, I get. One of the things that we've actually seen some stuff on the forums, I actually want to bring this up here. They are talking now about revisioning this again. So it seems to me that they've never really been able to come up with a strategy for this and stick with this. There's now another discussion going on. So here, let me show you a screenshot. This is a post by Eric Musco, let's see, the 26th, a few days ago, where he says, let's talk about gearing. And his wording is a little strange in some places, so bear with me here. Because as I do have a few things to pass on. First is the most important, absolutely keep all feedback coming. By the way, jump on the forums and let them know what you think. about gearing in every context. What you like and don't like, etc., etc. So definitely go share some stuff there. Second paragraph. I do want to state that there are no large systemic plans. I think he means changes planned for 252 or 258. So they're not going to make any changes to that. He goes, this doesn't mean that we may not make minor tweaks, but there are no plans to overhaul how gearing works in Tier 5. The reason is the team really wants to focus efforts on the future to ensure that we get revamping itemization as it is the best it can be. So it sounds to me like they don't want to make any changes to Tier 5, 252, 256, but we're talking maybe about a Tier 6 here?
No, they're
Tier
talking
7?
about we're adding 5 levels with an expansion, and everything resets at that stage.
Oh my God!
We're not going to mess
So
with what
252, 258. All right, so there's more. There's more. There's another post that he put on here. Here's the next post. Somebody mentioned 6.0. He goes, what is this elusive 6.0 you're speaking of? Let me spin this around. How would you want to see gear acquired via PvP in quote-unquote large future updates, such as an expansion? Should it be via commendation system, that is the UCs or PvP tokens, etc.? Should it be by drops from boxes, mission rewards? Yes. So it sounds to me like BioWare has gone back to the drawing board and is essentially redesigning gear again.
What is a UC?
The comms, the
unassembled
components. Thank you.
components
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
that you get in the PvP thingy.
Right, that you go and you turn in for whatever your class and spec that you want.
I have a
Yes.
crap ton of them in my legacy whatever.
You get them
Because
essentially
I
by
don't really
reverse
need
engineering your
them.
gear
Yeah.
breaking it down into components.
So my issue is, as somebody who does not do nightmare rating, it does not do rating at all right now. Probably won't anymore, period. But I am in the camp of bringing back a PvP exclusive stat, because I'm kind of tired of getting my butt handed to me all the time by people who roll in with raid acquired
nightmare,
gear,
yeah.
and I don't have it, or they need to make.
This is
I
what
knew
said
that
in
was
the
going to be a problem. The moment they came out with this,
Yeah.
I was like, someone's going to show up with 258 gear.
Right, and it's just, if you are not that person and you're just there to chill, it's so not fun to constantly just come out and die, respawn, die,
And get
respawn.
smeared. Yeah.
I don't expect to be like making leaderboards or getting into ranked PvP, but I would like to live longer than 30 seconds. Just be nice.
Okay. I feel you on that. And also, I didn't even know you could check leaderboards, or that there was actual rankings and that people could get like top jug and top sort, until I PvP'd this season. I ranked silver. I got my
With your
silver
nightmare gear.
flare. Yeah, with my nightmare gear. I got my silver flare. I went and queued up for a regular PvP match just so I could use my flag on a dead body, because I'd never had one before. I got someone so mad, so they killed me the next round and flagged me, and I was like, dude, that's what I'm here for. I want to flag people.
Trash
Never
talk
done
is
it
what she's there
before.
for.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But I mean, it just makes it not fun. And so the average people are just kind of like, this sucks. And I mean, I get the other side of the argument, which is, oh, then you have 2 gear grinds. And I get that too, but there has to be a happy medium. There are other games that have different ranks. So like they have a special like queue for people who are like have XYZ gear, and then they have, the really high level people that want to use all of their
Right.
super awesome stuff, and then they have another queue, that's max level, but everybody's kind of equaled out with, everybody comes in with the same gear rating basically, and all the highs and lows are knocked off. So
I literally just changed, like, on my main Sork. She's 1 piece away from 258 now, and I literally just go in and change my utilities and queue for PvP, and I'm like, I just wipe the board with people who don't. Like, I can I can just stay alive and stay alive and stay alive and stay alive. Like, I just never die half the time. Like, when I die, it's usually in hut ball. That's about it, because I get pulled into the fire, slime, or whatever. Like, I just don't die because it's, like, insane. And as a healer, I kill people. Like, I'm legit out DPSing some people. And I feel bad afterwards. I'm like, they did not deserve that.
I mean, I can just tell you from
That's good
doing
PvP.
PvP on Destiny 1 that there would be people who would come in and get a run of 40, 49 kill, matches, 50 kill matches, and they're like, oh, it becomes this meme, and they're like, oh, it was so amazing. I've been like on the other end of that, and it's so not amazing to be that person. Like, it really is not.
Where if they get a glimpse
Yeah,
of
I
you,
know.
you fall
It
over.
really feels like playing a sniper or a gunslinger in PvP, no matter how well geared you are.
No, that's true. Like you
I
can.
hear that from Chuck.
Yeah, because I've played a lot of sniper, and I've played them every which build I can think of, every which way, like all 3 specs, and they just don't have bite. They just don't kill things. They help to add some pressure. Is basically it. So yeah,
I mean,
no,
it does
I
depend
agree.
on the map, but the thing is now you can't even change your spec once you're in the game, which is really frustrating, right? Because, like, okay, I get into Void Star. Well, now I know I'm in Void Star, so I should be playing the AoE focused one with all the bombs and grenades and everything, because you can basically protect a door single handedly for a very long time.
Engineering
Right.
for the sniper version.
And then generally, if there's a lot of running involved from place to place or whatever, your dot spec is going to be pretty strong. I mean, and that's the thing too, is like and this is off on a tangent, but the gunslingers and snipers really only have any good productivity in the objective based PvP, and ranked has nothing to do with any of that. So.
Right, there's no objective to rank.
No, I mean, there isn't. They stripped all the objectives out. They strip all the game mechanics
It's a
out of
team
it too.
deathmatch. Yeah.
In my opinion, I know there's a movement on social media in our community of people who are starting to say bring back expertise.
Yes.
I don't.
Yes, I've been saying that since the day they took it out.
Yeah.
There are pluses and minuses to both, and I can
I
imagine.
finally had 2 full healer sets. I had Merc and Sword, completely, fully augmented and perfect. And like 2 days later, they got rid of expertise. I was like, why do you do this to me? Why? I was so bad.
But if they're not going to bring back that stat, then they need to do something. And the other bad thing is that because of this, it is completely, and because of this gearing situation, with everybody having to come in with their max, highest level PvE gear that they can get, it has completely decimated, along with the crates, it has completely decimated low B and mid B PvP, like queues.
Yeah, it's a ghost town. Those don't ever pop.
And that was my favorite place, and it was where I took all of the new people who had never PvP'd before.
That's true. And I will tell you, for years before you even came into the game, like, that was the general advice, was if you want to PvP, you do it leveling. Like, you don't do it endgame, because leveling was great. It was like just a wonderful way to get in, and basically everything was essentially even. I mean, of course, people that were higher level had a certain advantage because they had unlocked additional ability sets. So, which
and
is why actually
the brackets helped with that a little bit.
Right. Yes.
Except for when you got to the top of the bracket, those people.
Yeah, when you were level 30
way better than 10.
against level 65s,
well, there were always those unpleasant word type people that what they would do is they would go in. I don't know if you ever noticed, but there would always be a set number of people that would be quitting the game right as the scoreboard was about to pop up. Because what they were doing was they were preventing themselves from getting the experience benefit of having played the game. They knew they just won, but they didn't want to level up because they were sitting there at the top level possible in the bracket, and they're dropping out and saying, yeah, I just won that, and I'm going to stay here and stomp faces forever.
Yeah, well, I got my face
dedicated
smushed.
to a bracket that much. Jeez.
Neither. I didn't even think about doing that. I was just like, I always thought those people dropped because we had lost or whatever. But
that's actually a relic of World of Warcraft. I remember from way back in the day. I don't know what it's like today, but way back in the day, the way that theirs worked was that you actually didn't get experience doing PvP. and every 10 levels was a different bracket. And so you would have certain people, they call them twinks. It was their, low level tune that they had like gone to the certain flashpoints to get the highest blue
max their
possible
gear,
at that level. And then they would just play PvP all day long and they wouldn't get experience. So they could just literally just sit there and enjoy playing at whatever level they wanted to, at the best of their game.
And destroy everything.
Yeah. And then what they did was they implemented, okay, well, now you're going to get experience by doing PvP. And there was so much outrage from these twinks and everything that they actually created a toggle feature. So you could turn off the ability to earn XP in PvP.
We might as well just bring everybody back. Roll it
was
back
crazy.
to what it was.
So let me give you some idea, just especially Elise, I know you weren't here at the launch of the game, though some of the things, okay, as the game launched, it was actually really bizarre. Fortunately, they've never gone back this far. When the game launched, one thing that I did actually like, your first tier, where you would get your set bonuses and everything, actually came from the hard mode flashpoints. It wasn't from operations. You would get your set bonuses.
Your entry level
gear.
End game gear. Yeah, T&Es. I remember that stuff.
Yeah.
Then there was Kalumi was the second set after that.
And I can't remember the other names. I just always remember T&Es. But
so
and
they were awful. You want to talk about gear looking terrible? Kalumi and T&Es. Remember that stuff? Remember I know this is a total tangent. Well, we're talking about gearing, so maybe it's okay.
Very unattractive.
Oh my goodness. That was the one that had the head fan, for instance.
Well, they brought that back for you to buy on the cartoon.
Well, the gunslingers had the bonnet. And the troopers and mercenaries had the uncircumcised helmet. I mean, yeah, it was really bad. But it was it's one thing that I will say about the initial system, which was kind of cool, was that you could actually get your set bonuses initially by doing flashpoints, and there were tons of flashpoints at endgame that you could actually do that. Now, what ended up happening though was that to get the best gear, the fastest way to do it was to actually play PvP. And you would play PvP until you got enough tokens in order to buy a gear piece. Now, the thing was, you didn't get to choose what gear piece it was. You would buy a random gear piece. And you would have a chance to get what you wanted.
Totally RNG. RNG.
Complete RNG.
Which gear piece are you going to get? Yay. Oh, no, you didn't.
But I remember this is why, for the first time in an MMO ever, I played a second character and leveled it up as soon as I hit max level on my first. Because I got there and all the people that I was intending on doing, we called it raids, but we call it operations in this game. They were like, I was like, okay, so now what do I do? How do I get ready to do the operation? And they're like, yeah, you play PvP. I was not a PvPer.
For RNG gear, and if you get lucky and get the piece that you need to build a set, and it got harder as you go, right? Because first you get the boot. When you start, anything is good. You couldn't
get access without Valor. And I hadn't played any PvP leveling up. So I had no Valor. Right? And you had to be like Valor level 30 before you could get the gear.
Yeah. Yeah, somewhere in there I learned that it was good to, as you were leveling up, be doing PvP, so that by the time you got to endgame, you were Valor level 40. If you could pull that off, then you were right on track to go into endgame PvP.
Dude, the easiest thing to do in the world, actually leveling, if we really want to go back, when it comes to gearing and everything, full-on access, and also to level as rapidly as possible, as soon as you hit a level, you immediately queued up for PvP, did dailies, weeklies, whatever, until you got the Valor for that level, because the Valor was capped at your existing level. So if you're level 41, you could only get to full-on 41, right? And then the other thing was to go to your ship and do the on-rails ship. Because the experience returns were absolutely absurd.
Those were great.
They were so good. And then you would go back and do your story or whatever. But yeah, so anyway.
First scoundrel was leveled that way.
Gearing was fascinating, only in that it's never actually been duplicated since. That the best way to gear at that time was purely through PvP. The gear was identical. So you would just keep doing the PvP in the random boxes until you got all the gear and you could min-max, and then you would go in and start doing the and I don't think, did they even launch with Nightmare at the time? I think it might have been just Story and Heart at the time. But although Story wasn't actually Story at the time, they called it Story, but it was like, I mean, it was, a raid. There was actually challenge to it. Now,
you mean there was mechanics?
Yes, exactly. There was mechanics, and you could die to stupid.
I remember back in the day when people would be like, and of course, don't forget, don't stand stupid. And now they're just like, it's story mode, and everybody just runs in, and like nobody like stops to do anything until you get to a puzzle. Then they're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? This is story mode. There's a puzzle. Oh my gosh.
Man, I remember the conversations too, because there were a lot of people. Now, like, my attitude had actually always been, there were, the diehard raid operations groups that were like, PvP sucks, blah, 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 blah. I just did enough to get my gear, and now I'm a real man, but there was the counter argument, which was the fact that, like, playing PvP, you actually had to learn how to use all your abilities. Like defense.
I'm a real man.
Hey, man.
As opposed to when you were a fake man before. Okay, just checking.
Or a boy.
Yeah.
Or a wooden toy, if we're Pinocchio.
Go on.
But,
I got the reference.
But yeah. But the argument was actually that oftentimes, particularly back in the day, there were certain mechanics that required you to, like, use an interrupt. Or like with trash pulls and stuff, they were so important that they would wipe groups and prevent from even getting a boss pull. You had to use CC, and certain mobs.
That was when raiding was at its best. When you had to plan. Okay, here's how we're gonna fight this trash. You're gonna get that guy. You're gonna get that guy.
You're pulling that one.
Absolutely, yes. That was the best raiding right there. It's like fighting the trash was as fun as the boss.
Yeah, now people who never played
anything because Legacy was just a bar that kept going up and had actually no value when it was launched.
Right.
No value.
Well, now in raids.
Well, there were certain things you couldn't access though until you had a certain Valor rank. Like you had to be level 50
Legacy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I said Valor. I meant Legacy. Yes.
Yeah.
Legacy rank. There was like certain abilities in your Legacy tab that you couldn't open until you got to that. So the only purpose of it was
punching
to unlock
somebody. Which you had to be
legacy punching.
That wasn't an initial. I don't think that was initial anything. I thought that was added later. But my point was there were certain things that you could unlock that would say you must be legacy level, yada yada to get this. Like I think to unlock a mailbox you have to be like legacy level 10 or something like that.
Yeah, once they introduced mailboxes and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. At that time, I wasn't worried about Legacy, so I honestly don't remember exactly when they launched that. I just remember when I finally was able to, like, get on a speeder. I was like, holy crap!
At level 25.
I never had all... could afford to have all my abilities trained, because you had to pay for your abilities back then.
Which I'm completely neglecting to mention how we also launched with the game that literally every single planet had its own currency.
Yes.
And then you would get level-specific gear to that planet.
Magic did bring that up earlier. So you'd have Alderaan comms.
So when we were talking about currency bloat, we were talking about every single planet that had been in the game at that stage having its own currency and having Warzone comms specifically. And then there were like Tianese crystals and Kalumi crystals and stuff like that too. Yeah. Like there were these things like that. It was way. And there was a currency for the on rails spaceships too. Like there was just so many currencies. We're talking dozens upon dozens.
But Redna, I mean, look back on that. Even though there was a lot of it, it was a simple system. You know what I'm saying? Like if you wanted a piece of gear that was for Alderaan level,
were understandable. You use your Alderaan commendations on Alderaan. Yes.
To buy them from the Alderaan vendor at Fleet that had between level 24 and 30 or something like that.
Yeah, an entire quadrant of the fleet was dedicated to all the different vendors.
Yeah, but it was simple, right? If you wanted the PvP gear, you took your PvP comms to the PvP vendor and bought the PvP gear. I think it was, even though there was a lot to it, it was a lot simpler than the kind of stuff we have now.
Let's put it this way: it wasn't simpler; it was straightforward.
Okay, I can accept that
because it was incredibly complex. There was so many layers in, unnecessary redundancy. But so to your point though, then I think it was after McKeb or whatever. Then they started doing weird different names and conventions and stuff, and they did twist things up a bit.
The data crystals and whatnot. That's when things really got weird for me. When I liked that they consolidated the comms and like you no longer had that one Korriban crystal or comm left.
Planetary comms.
Yeah, like when they got rid of planetary comms, I was thankful for that because I hated that you couldn't ever just get that one or two comms left and like put it towards the next planet. It was always just stuck there. And since you're never going back to that planet, you had 15 characters that all had like one or two comms left. Like that was very frustrating. Yeah. So getting rid of planetary comms I felt like was important. But when they swapped to the crystal system, I was like, okay, I don't really care for it, but it works. I can do this. I can go with that. And then like everybody started hoarding crystals because we thought we were going to get something else when they were changing over the new system. And instead they're like, oh no, we're going to give you like up to 4 million credits or whatever it was. Or I think it was like 3,000.
Yeah, there was
3
some
million,
exchange rate.
3.5 million, something like that. They're like, how many ever crystals you have? And some of us had the clickables where they had stacks of 99. You could have 3 stacks of 99 of those crystals that when you clicked, it would transfer and give them to you. Well, the thing was some of us had those stacks because we thought, okay, well, we're going to get credits for it. We didn't know there was a credit cap
I still have
at the
some
time.
of those, actually.
Yeah, so the thing was is if you didn't click those crystals and use them, you didn't get credits for them. So then later after the credit transfer,
you're still sitting on
you
them.
clicked on the crystals,
Boom, there they
nothing
are.
happened. You just opened it, had 99 crystals. You didn't get the currency for it. You're like, what was I farming all these data crystals for? Like, it was so frustrating. It was understood until that point. Then when they swapped over, that's when, to me, the currency system started going, yeah. That's when the tanking happened, when they started doing that, in my opinion. The crystals were the easiest because it was condensed. But straightforward is the right way, I think, to say it before, because you knew exactly what vendors you had to go to. Everything was labeled. You didn't have to try to figure out,
Yeah.
but this one's over here, and then I have to swap it back over here, and then I have to go back over here, and then go over here again. Like right now, the system, you take a 236, you cash it in at your vendor, then you have to go over to the other side and get an unassembled piece, a 242. Then you take the unassembled, go back to the original vendor, cash it in, and then you take your 242 piece, take it back over to the other vendor. You get a 248 unassembled. You take the 248 unassembled,
Right.
go back to the 248 vendor, and finally get your 248 piece. That is a lot of mess. Sorry,
yeah, it's just not straightforward. And I think
No.
I think if the system is simple, you can have complexity in the comms, but the system is simple enough where the stuff matches up well and it works. So yeah, no, absolutely.
Here's my opinion. Because we got 15 left. So in my opinion, if I had an ideal, my way, right, the way that I would like to do it, it would be, I actually do like the idea that you can get your set bonuses from doing the flashpoints. Like, do hard mode flashpoints, get your set bonuses. Have it like a pre-tier, tier 0.5 or whatever, so that you can get your bonuses.
Yeah, right now you can use unassembled components. I'm glad I got that right. And just go buy the straight 236. Like, you can get into tier 2 just by buying stuff. But if that wasn't the way,
with set gear,
then what you're saying would be,
Yeah, you can
Yes,
buy your
I
set
agree. No,
bonuses
because
too
my
for-
point is that kind of token crap and nonsense for the PvE gear doesn't make any sense to me. You go into a flashpoint, you kill bosses, you get gear.
exactly.
You don't need to build up comms. You don't need to earn crap.
Yeah.
You just go kill something and get something.
Let's go get on the forums and tell Eric we want to loot this stuff. That's
Right.
all we want is to loot it.
The flashpoints are so like
So
way
if you
too
wanna-
hard for the quality of gear that you get that everybody just goes. If you really want to be all like that, then you just go into a story mode.
Then that's right.
Operation.
If you can get the
And
group
now-
together or actually get a pug to drop, then that's cool. And that's right. You don't need to do it.
If you want a 258 man hand, there's 2 ways to do it. One, you craft, and the mats drop from Nightmare Gods for the Machines. Or you can do hard mode queen 2 times for main hand and 2 times for offhand, but you can only do it once per week. So you have to do it 4 weeks with the weekly to get the blue crystal. And then on top of that, you have to have 5 of the gold crystals per piece. So you have to have 10 gold crystals and 4 blue crystals in order to cash in your main hand and offhand. But you have to have the original 252 piece. If you did not have the 252 piece, you then have to have 2 more gold crystals for each one. That puts you at a total of 12 gold crystals and 4 blue crystals. Then you can get your offhand and your main hand and go swap it in for the 258.
Yeah, this stuff is crazy.
That means it takes you 4 weeks. If you're not doing Nightmare Gods, it takes you 4 weeks to get a main hand offhand.
So again, I want to just go kill something and get something, and all of that nonsense is over the top. Now, the one thing that I do think, and we do know that they have mentioned the fact that they've got their mods and enhancements now are bound to item. So to me, I'm actually, at first I was like, that's the dumbest, most pain in the butt thing ever, except that I actually can appreciate set bonuses. You still have to kill something to get something. I like that. But then make it so that crafters can craft at the highest level. And if you want to min-max, in other words, if you want to replace a mod or enhancement that default comes with the gear, then you go to the crafter. I actually like that could be a good way for the crafters to actually have some significant power.
Be relevant. Yeah, no kidding. Like so they craft the min-max pieces and the enhancements and the whatever
mods. Yeah,
yeah,
but not the armorings or set bonuses.
And the B mods or whatever. They're the ones that create those. So if you want to min-max your gear, you go to the crafters. But the lock, the factory,
that's not slot bound.
Factory stuff is in the default gear. I actually kind of like that idea.
Here's a caveat too. If you do the weekly for Ossus in the original, the first time you do the world boss, you can pick a main hand or offhand, I believe it was. Those 252 pieces that you get, if you keep the shell for it, you don't have to have the 2 extra crystals, the 2 extra gold crystals. You can take that when you get the 2 blue crystals and 5 gold crystals to swap it in. So you actually, if you got that original when you first ran through, it puts you one step closer to at least one of them. By the way, that forgot to mention that.
Hey, I have a novel idea. What does Elise think?
Well, let me just put out the last bit because it's really quick, which is for the Warzone stuff. There was a time, and I think it was the heyday for PvP. They had the expertise. We need the expertise back. It statistically, it was like 2 tiers behind the best PvE gear. I was actually totally cool with that too, because that meant you could take the best PvP gear and do a story mode. You know, I actually preferred having set bonuses that were different for PvP versus PvE, but that's another conversation. But for PvP, I think I like the comps. And the heyday was, you play 2 or 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, and in 2 weeks' time, you were able to min-max your PvP gear. And I think that's completely appropriate, because when it comes down to it, like Elise said, you shouldn't have to be in there for months at a time, dying every 30 seconds, to be able to get gear that eventually lets you survive long enough to actually start enjoying the game mode.
Right.
Well, that's why you just take a stealth character and you just like weave in and out and like tag people here, you know, go harass somebody at that pylon. And then it doesn't matter that you don't have gear. Nobody can see you. It's fine.
Yeah. Neff brings up something interesting in chat.
But you have to know what you're doing to do that. So
yeah.
And
so Neff
people have to worry about it.
Neff brought up
that's
in
probably
chat.
why I'm bad at it.
This the whole dark versus light thing, right? You have the dark versus light. You gain the comms, which were awful at first because only I remember when we were on Harbinger back at the time, I think only the light side was making the wins, so nobody dark could get them unless you went out to go farm. That was a tough thing, but you eventually saved up your stuff, and then you go buy all the gear sets from the dark side vendor or the light side vendor. Now what? Now you're maxed out in dark side comms, light side comms, or whatever, and there's like nothing you can do with them. It's another one of those systems in the game where they thought short term and did something that was really cool, but forgot to keep adding things to the vendor to keep the stuff relevant. So in the end, it's like, what am I doing with all these comms? I'm sitting on the max level. I'm done. There's just nowhere else to go with it. So.
Well, let's talk about the dark versus light boxes too. So that was another way that you kind of got screwed over, at least for PvP.
That's another way you got screwed over.
Because if you were somebody who had all kinds of time and could go grind out boxes and stuff, then those people would end up with really great gear too. And for those people that just didn't have tons and tons of time or the desire to just go grind out boxes, I still haven't hit 300 CP yet. Still, I'm not there yet.
I've got it on so many imp tunes, but I still need it on 2 pub tunes to get the achievement for having all 8.
At 300.
I have one character.
Yeah. And you know how I got both of those pub tunes there? I would save the clickables, I put them in Legacy Bank, and then when the double CXP was on, I'd open them up and just click. That's 160 how I got levels 2 of them. Yep, and right now I have a commando that's almost 300, and I have a what is it called? That thing that's not a marauder. It's a sentinel. I have a sentinel. I can't think of pub stuff. Okay, it's not my thing. I have a sentinel that's like almost ranked 200. It's ridiculous. Oh, I was gonna say something real quick. The whole the currency, the vendors, like the actual dark versus light vendors. You know how you get maxed on 100 dark comms or 100 light comms whenever you pick whether or not you're light or dark? That vendor on both sides has almost nothing. Like, almost nothing. And so when you get a tune that's hit 100 like 7 times, and you've gotten everything off that vendor like twice over, you're like, oh, I'm almost capped at 100 comms again. Dark side comms. Whoa, what am I going to do? Nothing, I guess. It's like I had a whole legacy tab full of pets that I kept buying from that vendor. And like every time I get a dark side tune high enough to do it, I'd go pop that. But then they would hit 100 on the dark side tokens, and I wouldn't have anything to buy. But I will say this. They have really nice belts. They have the light belts that like kind of like flash. They do this like little...
There's a pulse in them, yeah.
Thing. Pulse, thank you, yeah. Yeah, the lights on the belt. And they dye beautifully. My Sork, my main Sork, Miss Arrogance, she has all different variations of the dark side belt that does that light up on one outfit or another. Like, it looks fabulous. So just so you guys know, you don't have to waste the comms. You can use them as a beautiful stamp. It's gorgeous. And it's legacy gear. If you're like, oh man, I don't have enough money to go buy legacy gear. Well, guess what? You have all those useless tokens. You can go get some. Just make sure you buy light or dark, depending, depending on what you need for the other class.
They're definitely. I mean, some of them were weird. They had kind of like a samurai kind of look or feel to them. I want to say, but they were like weird. Like one of them had the wings, like the chest pieces. Like that was pretty cool, but the wings needed to be bigger.
My friend called the wings Cupid wings because they're like tiny.
And you don't really want to wear them on a male tune. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no, he did, and he dyed it pink. He was like, "I'm Cupid." Yeah, it was great.
Yes, I don't know. Like to me, and here they are again. At the end of the day, here's Eric posting on the forums, going, "Hey, we're gonna redo this. There's got a what does he call it? A major future update." But he won't call it in 6.0. We're gonna So it could come sooner, right? It could be 5.11 or something. So
that's a whole other show about the fact that he doesn't want to call it an expansion.
Yes, it is.
So I didn't say anything this whole episode about that.
No, I couldn't agree more.
But listen, I just want them to hire me so they can bounce these questions off.
Twice. They have dodged it twice now on the forums about calling it an expansion. So just
major future update.
That's like when Matt was talking about the Queen, the Genoshan Queen. He wouldn't call it a raid. He called it an encounter. Even though it's a lockout, like in your raid list, like when you go to look, it's in your raid list. So like you have, Dread Palace and Dread Fortress and the Queen. And then you have these other ones. But he wouldn't call it a raid. He called it an encounter. But honestly,
tell me this is
because
not
there are no raids in
purpose.
SWTOR. They're operations.
He wouldn't call it an operation.
Fight me.
Yeah, he didn't even want to call that. I mean, he could have just called it a single raid boss like Golden Bunny. It was better than Tomorrow's Courier. I enjoy it better because there's even like a little bit of a puzzle getting down to the boss. Like you have to like light off explosives and stuff. And if you don't interrupt the guards,
and you actually learn the mechanics for the boss fight by doing the trash. Yeah.
I actually really enjoy it. So when people are like, "Let's farm the Queen," I'm like, "I'm in." I'm like, I can DPS it. I haven't tanked it yet, but I've offered a couple times and then got scared and said no. But I can DPS and I can heal it. Okay, like. Let's go, coach. Put me in. I can do this because it's actually fun. And I used to like Tomorrow's Courier, and now I'm like, let's do the Queen. Thanks. And the Queen will actually give me stuff. And it only gives you 75 components, so it's not like Nightmare tier raid, but it's better than
Elise is totally your. It's a single raid boss. You can get a group together and go do it and work on and quit when you want. Or if you finish it, hey, everyone have a good night, go your separate ways. But it's not a string of 7 bosses or, like a 2.5 hours worth of...
You can drink and do it, and it's fine.
I know, but Wog's not around anymore.
Well, we can still do it once in a while.
I think we should.
I just keep doing it on Friday nights.
Quarterly we should do something.
That's really the night I've got. I guess I could do Saturday night, but that's it.
But then everybody has to sub back up to...
Exactly. That's the problem. Now, again, another topic for another show. If we still had the passes, this would not be a problem. But again,
through that.
Another show. So.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's right at the hour. I think I don't have anything in the announcements specifically that I want to bring up. Is there anything going on that anyone knows of that we want to bring up at this point with regards to the game? Not really.
I don't know. Is anybody thankful?
Thankful for the changes. I mean, I'm thankful for the queen encounter. It's something different. I'm not, it's not as rewarding as going into SMV and getting my, all the components that I get out of it and whatnot. But I will say that it's a whole lot easier to get a group for hard mode queen than it is for Nightmare SMV. So I'm thankful. And we would like to say thank you all for coming and chit-chatting with us and watching and just generally, lurking, being around. We appreciate it. But we'd also like to say thank you to our patrons. Thank you very, very much. We really appreciate everything you contribute to us. Even your comments. They're fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We love the support, and we love that we're still here. Thanks.
And that brings us to the end of the episode. The council is adjourned. If you'd like to reach us, you can email us at thecouncil@thecouncilswotor.com. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/thecouncilswotor. You can find Elise on Twitter at abrown35, Magic Ace at the Magic Ace, myself at R3DN4, and Sechari at I am Sechari. Also, don't forget our Patreon page at patreon.com/thecouncilswotor, where patrons can catch the articles we're talking about behind the scenes and exclusive backstage access to our show after show chat. That's it for this week, guys. So who talks first? You talk? I talk first?
I understand.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
Forgive me, Master.